this video is really a case in point. So I'm now redoubling a video that I just made. It actually touches on two things that I wanted to talk about, which is one is that I think that a lot of times I wanted to do this. I'm gonna make the next video about animals, and is what I wanted to do. But actually I was uploading this video, and then a bird was singing out my window, and the sound that the bird made, it actually it subtly influenced me to touch the screen wrong, and I deleted a piece of content that I had just made, and that's actually the influence of a bird right there. How influential a bird can be, as soft and subtle as their intonations are. It's yet very influential and powerful in that sense. Sometimes we don't appreciate how powerful animals and creatures around us are, for better or worse. But we can say for better because things work for the good. But they're actually influencing us as they're singing around us. That's actually what I wanted to start with today. But what I was enunciating in the former video, it's gonna be difficult to capture what I had enunciated. But I was more so saying that. So I was pointing out the overlap between four authors: Naomi Klein, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Arthur Avalon, and Swami Vivekananda. And to start with, Naomi Klein talks about in some of her books, like No Logo, she talks about externalities, which are the byproduct and the detriments and the punishment and the expense of one undertaking by a person or collective, and how that is felt by that maybe that person themselves, their group, their initiative, and then other people broader at different degrees. And then as you go from the higher tiers of enjoying value, privilege, and status to the lower tiers of paying for and sustaining the production and the standpoint for others to enjoy privilege, status, and in property, the activities are passed off just like a factory leaving chemical byproducts. That's the most clear example of an externality. But what I was enunciating in that video is that so the most fundamental wealth in life is still well-being. But there's no sense of well-being or experience or enjoyment of well-being without it's interesting that that bird is really singing a lot, but it's very distracting, as though it were intending to obstruct me creating this video. That's what I wanted to talk about. But from that standpoint, the fundamental, so the object of the state, like a lot of people, you see something that says state trooper, and you think that, wow, they must really love the state that they're from. They must be all about this state. But what state more so means is the collective interests of hoarding, of creating, sustaining, and destroying opportunity to enjoy wealth that is status and privilege, and the different things, the different physical things, intellectual things, and social opportunities that come from that is what I think the most basic sense you could say that's mitigated by finance, but it's not limited to finance. That's what a state is. That's what the state is. And so you see state trooper, you might as well just see when you see a state trooper, that's not really any different than like your different, like those different trucks that come and haul off money. So they're both just making sure that the money flows, is the state trooper and the different guards. And I don't mean disrespect to them, because a lot of things aren't viable with all of our contributions. So whatever I enjoy in life, it wouldn't be possible without their contributions also. But so if you appreciate the most fundamental aspect of wealth, the most fundamental unit of wealth is well-being. That is health. There's no well-being without health. That would make the medical establishment the highest tier of the state, because the medical establishment is concerned, like all things, with power in the first place. But why power? In order to mitigate, to control status and property, that is privilege, that is the ability to enjoy, sustain, and further our existence on this earth, which is and to a large degree zero sum. Is that where there's one excess, there's a lack somewhere else. And so it's yet a lot of life is like a cakewalk, where your footing, it allows you to be seated in different things that allow you to enjoy, to live and get closer to the cake. And somebody had to be outed for that. That's a lot of the way that life works, is that it's like that's one of the brutal things about life. Some people would call it evolution also, but it's just like it's like a filtering thing where there are always things being shorn off, including human beings and beings. And so a lot of that is what is happening with like status, with status and property, and so that's what the state is concerned about. Not the least of which human beings and their health, as the most fundamental unit of capital is human health. What enjoyment, creation, or sustaining of capital have you without healthy human beings, or at least productive human beings? You have to have some degree of health to be productive. And I don't know that the medical establishment wants us completely healthy, because if we were completely healthy, we would have complete wealth, and therefore we would have complete standing to dispense with anything that's not in our best interest, such as sometimes medical professionals in establishment that have different various interests that are not always serving us. So medical establishment is interested in the control of what it is to be healthy and the ability to be healthy, but they're not concerned with health in itself for as an altruistic standpoint as they would present themselves. I think they portray like the Hippocratic Oath and stuff like that, but I still don't know that I don't know that if the scales of justice were really applied to a person, that because they said that Hippocratic Oath, that they would be completely just or forthright from that point forward with all people at all times. Because I've met a lot of mean-spirited and some, frankly disingenuous medical professionals, and I can imagine they've said that oath. But what I meant to say is that you saw in the pandemic that that the medical establishment has more say so than even the military. Like so you have the medical establishment first and foremost as the power par excellence. Then you have the like the production serves the medical establishment. It serves health, but health also serves production. If you ever had any contract of some kind that has to do with physical output, whether it be like a fitness contract or a work contract, anything to do with physical, if you have there's a discrepancy between what you can physically do and what you're contracted to do, a doctor is going to have near about life and death say so about your spell your fate at that moment. And you see how much power doctors yet yield. But it's also similar with opportunities to work. Like I lost my CDL when I decided that I no longer want to take pharmaceutical medical substances that I don't think help me, or and I think that actually injure me. All I meant to say is that you saw in the pandemic that the medical establishment has say so even above considerations of production and military, and you could say that military and production serve health that is wealth. And even your outstanding cadre of the military sometimes were leaving their posts because they didn't want to participate in some of the mandates and policy of the pandemic, and they were as soon dispensed with as far as the values of the medical establishment go, because the value of the medical establishment supersede military implications and even national jurisdictions and borders and what we thought were politics. You saw that in the pandemic. But all I meant to say is that um, Nicholas Nassim Taleb has talked about some of the gaming and racketing within all different fields of human activity, such as medicine, productivity, production, food, exercise, all different things. Nassim Nicholas Taleb talked about that. Then Arthur Avalon talked about yoga and even the dangers of yoga. And then Swami Vivekananda also talked about yoga, but I think maybe deeper than Arthur Avalon. And Arthur Avalon was trying to make Tantra and yoga understood to Indian and also Western audiences. But Swami Vivekananda, I think, may have been even more valiant in really transcending borders through understanding, and is said in his book on yoga in the beginning that Hinduism may be appreciated now on the world stage and respected as a world religion to the degree that it is because of largely because of partly because of the contributions of Swami Vivekananda in the late 19th and early 20th century. And I think that India has something called Youth Day, according to that book, like around January 12th, that might be his birthday. And that's how influential he was. But he's profound in that book. And what he says is that advice is very can be detrimental because it's tainted by our own self-interest and perspective. So when we offer advice to another person, we can potentially there may be nothing good of advice for anyone, and that's true of the medical establishment, because one of the main objectives of doctors and medicine in general is to offer advice to another person with or without their consent, or with or without their esteem. And so all I meant to say is that that's why in this series I'm not intending to offer advice, but only collaboration and free thought is all I'm trying to say with this.